Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Dobry wieczór. Hi, as Chris said, I'm from Krakow. As you might know, we are acceleration program, also an incubation program based here in Krakow in Zabłocie. We are basically an outlet, innovation and investment outlet of Deutsche Telekom, and one of our, let's say, differences from everything else is that we are active in the areas where is our footprint in terms of T-Mobile, like in Poland. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next person, take a seat. The next person that I'd like to invite is Mike Rayner. He's coming from all the way from Estonia, from an accelerator called Startup Wise Guys.
Thank you. Hi guys, so my name is Mike Reiner. I'm co-founder and head of Startup Wise Guys Accelerator. We're a B2B accelerator based in Tallinn. So we have a pretty international team. We moved to Tallinn 2 years ago, mainly to be closer to the Eastern European region, to focus on that talent. And the follow-up markets we focus on with our startups are mostly the UK and US market. So far we've invested in 24 companies from 15 different countries, not only Europe, but all over, like Costa Rica, Chile, India, and they came all the way to cold Estonia. And basically right now, this year, we're launching a completely new B2B program, and now we're looking for B2B startups exclusively. And we'd love to see some more Polish teams.
Okay, thank you. The next startup that I'd like to invite here is John Bradford with TechStars, TechStars Accelerator. John, tell us a few words about yourself.
Hi, my name's John Bradford. I run TechStars in London. For those that don't know, we were the first accelerator based on mentorship from the community. We've been running 7 years. We run 12 programs at the minute, of which 10 are in the US. And we've helped support about 350 teams. We support about 150 every year. And those teams have raised about $500 million.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Marcin. Marcin from Innovationist. Tell us a few words about Accelerate.
Well, do I have to introduce myself? My name is Marcin Szelong. I'm the partner at Innovationist, one of the 3 partners who are at the fund. Basically, we are an early stage fund focusing on SaaS B2B startups. Last year we've launched our acceleration program. We had 4 batches. We've invested in 6 companies so far. You pretty much know all the stuff about Innovationist and Accelerate already, so I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Can you give this microphone there, and we're gonna use this one. So we never did it before. We never had 4 people on a stage and just have a discussion between them. So let's try it out. We heard a few words about your accelerators. We know that you're coming from different parts of Europe, but is there one specific thing that differs you from any other accelerator that was here?
So we're a corporate accelerator based by a big company, and our interests are 2 specific areas. So corporation, that's our let's say difference. I was going to say it's the only accelerator I run, but that's actually a lie. I actually help to run 4 other accelerators. What's novel or different about TechStars? I think we probably actually have the biggest network of programs. So every program is run by an entrepreneur. And one of the things that we find is being able to have scale across all of those different people really helps us to learn faster, to do more programs, and therefore actually help the teams.
Yeah, so like I said, this year we decided to focus exclusively on B2B startups. The reason is that like most of our portfolio companies are B2B, most of our mentors have a B2B background, so we decided that's what we're better at, so we're going to focus completely on this and build a new program completely around the B2B focus, also working much more with corporates and SMEs to create customers for our startups. That's, I think, the main difference for us.
In terms of Innovationist and what we do at Accelerate, basically we have a very specific path that we want to take, that we want the startups that we invest in to take. And basically it is to find their way to Silicon Valley. So basically what we do, we find teams with the global sort of approach, with global potential, and we work with them to reach product market fit, and that's where we actually invest our money. And then we try to raise a seed round in the Valley. We've managed to do that with one company already, and we've been only doing that for the last, 18 months. So basically our differentiator is that we focus on SaaS, and that we want to see startups that want to take on the Silicon Valley approach.
Okay, thank you. I did a research a month ago about the accelerators here based in Europe, and there's 80 of them or even more. There's accelerator basically popping up every month or every week. And there are different models of the accelerators. Some of them are taking the startups on site, some of them are not. Can you tell us a bit about the services that you are providing to the startups?
Okay, so basically we're not a typical accelerator. So we don't keep the teams on site. So basically what we do, we have a three-part program. So the first part is our customer development workshops. So basically we have 6 meetings. We ask the teams to come to our office. We spend the whole day talking about their business model, their MVP, their go-to-market strategy, and that's like a month of work. Then we take them to Silicon Valley, and basically it is a trip that we take so that these teams can get a feeling of the valley. They can meet mentors, they can meet their potential clients. They can also validate in a way, they can validate their business model. Then they come back and they work with us for the next couple of months on releasing the next version of their product and to actually try to sell it on the market. So we focus on working on the business model, giving access to the network of mentors, and trying to release the product on the market.
So we actively have startups come over. So for us it's very important that all the startups work together at one place. So we have a 3+1 model where we work 3 months very intensively with our startups, very similar to how TechStars model work. So first month, typically around 80 mentors will come over, a lot of them also from the UK and the US, work with our startups, and then like second month we focus on adjusting the product, third month mostly on sales pitches and everything else. This will now change much more working with corporates in our B2B program. And then the fourth month, what we focus on is a relocation for the target markets. So what we typically do is we take the UK and US market and help our guys to relocate to those markets if they're ready. So then by hooking up the co-working spaces, getting them with the right mentors and the market access in those markets. So that's what we do.
No, a number of these guys here. Hello. There's some people who'd like to switch me off. They're probably fiddling around with switches at the back. So traditional 3-month accelerator kind of things which are interesting beyond that. We're fortunate enough we get a lot of freebies from lots of different people, which can add up to quite a lot of money. The thing that we probably have, which is slightly different, is because we run different programs across the whole of the US, and every program typically has about 100 mentors across the whole network, which is primarily US focused. We can have over 1,000 mentors that you can have access to in the broader network. The other thing is we tend to consider ourselves, I think the world's moving and it might be worth talking about this, is we consider ourselves as venture capitalists. And so the way I get paid is I get a small salary and then I have a really big upside if I can make a lot of money for my teams. And so therefore my job is not just to help people in 13 weeks, but to actually concentrate and support them through the life journey of the business. And that can go on for 5 to 7 years. And they keep telling me at one point in the future I might be quite rich, but it might be 5 or 10 years from now. But the only way I make money is by actually helping my founders make money.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a different approach than you guys. We do the so-called turbo acceleration in 8 days. We take the teams from our 13 countries that we're interested in. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So we fly them here to Krakow, and we do really intensive workshops, lectures, trainings, drills for 8 to 10 hours a day. We had one in December. I think some of you were on the demo day. So basically we want them at the same place as us, at this mixing and working together and bringing all of our assets in terms of, we have quite a lot of mentors, but we also have a huge footprint as Deutsche Telekom, a huge corporation with huge, let's say, assets in terms of outside in-depth industry experts, which are not entrepreneurs, but have specific skills. On top of that, add serial entrepreneurs and add everything that a big, huge corporation can add, without the bureaucracy and everything. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. So accelerators are investing money. What is the typical deal that is behind your accelerator? Let's start with John, maybe.
So we actually invest about 120,000 US dollars, which is a combination of a small equity stake of 6% and a loan note which goes alongside that. The 6%, somebody really wants to be an entrepreneur. The 6%, we actually really concentrate on making sure we have exactly the same shares as the founders. Because one of the things that's really important to us is we actually align ourselves exactly the same as the founders. So we only make money if the founders make money, and if the founders make money, we make money. So we're really, really focused on that.
So our typical deal is, So our typical deal is a bit more simple. So for us, it's important that we get the buy-in from one of our NATCOs, national companies in Europe, that they think that this is something valuable, really, that they can help them grow. And we do a convertible note of 30K, like a pre-seed, and a seed agreement of 50. And following rounds if they deem necessary. Yeah.
So our deal right now is still seems like 15K for the 3 month, which was initially so that just the startups can cover all the costs as some additional money. For the next program, we're looking at to raise that number, but right now it's not that's not confirmed. So we also have a follow-up deal with smart cap investment for around 1 million for alumni companies, which is a follow-up investment, which is basically 50-50 deal where we can put in 50% of the money that's raised from private investors.
Well, we have a slightly different approach again. The initial investment is $25,000 for 8% in equity. But the thing with Innovation Nest is that this is just the first check that we write. So we are not a typical accelerator because we have an acceleration program, but we are also a seed fund which can invest anything up to $500,000. So basically, after the 25K, then we make another investment decision if you want to follow on or not. If we do, then we supply the capital for the first seed round. Then we try to do a second seed, which we participate in, but we also take on additional investors, which we try to get from the US.
Thanks. Some of you mentioned the follow-on investments, and can you tell us a bit more? How many startups went for your program? How many of them raised second funding, and did you follow on that funding?
I'm not really good at technology. which is a worry. Our demographic of startups is a very, very strange demographic. So to give you some context, we had typically over 1,000 applications for the 10, before we get to the 10 teams. Typically, which is different from normal, half of our teams have already raised money before they've even got to our program, or they're actually already revenue generative. So it's kind of, the teams are slightly further along in the food chain. Only half of our teams raise money after the program. Does that make sense? So the overall effect is 90% of our teams go on to raise money. The average amount is about $1.5 million. But to some extent, one of the things I would probably say, and it's a bit of a skewed myth, actually raising money doesn't necessarily equate to success. One of the things that's really important is, how do you build awesome businesses? Sometimes businesses need capital and sometimes they don't. Just raising money for its own sake is not necessarily the right measure. Unfortunately, for most VCs and accelerators, that's been perceived to be the success factor.
We just started last year here in Krakow. We had our first generation. We invested already in 2, 3 more in the talks, 1 more outside of our acceleration, already received follow-up round funding, but that's it. So this year we're going for another round in July, and another one for that. So we'll see how it goes. So far, we focus on a really early stage, so ideas, prototypes, and something that is valuable for a telco industry, not only mobile, but the telco industry. So we try to go there really early, as opposed to TechStars. Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, right now, it's more than half the teams raise follow-up funding. And the range, differs. So just in January, we had 4 teams raising money. 2 teams, $500,000, 1 team, $250,000, 1 team, a small round, 80. So the range varies, but typically the higher end will be around close to $1 million, and typically the low round around 100K. So after the accelerator, typically expect 200K rounds to raise.
Well, just to give you a quick background as to how we operate in that term. So basically, when teams apply, the first step is to actually get into the interview stage. After the interview stage, we have workshops. After those workshops, we then make the investment decision, if we want to invest or not. Then those companies get the 25K. We go on for the next 4 months, then we make another decision. So far, we've invested in 6 companies. Out of those 6 companies, 2 raised follow-on investments. Another 2 will probably do the same, so we'll have 4 out of 6. And in terms of and that's the seed sort of stage investment. Probably 2 out of those 4 will raise additional seed 2 rounds in the next couple of months. The way we do it, we also are very particular into when it comes to choosing the companies that we want to go. We want to push through the workshops. So we basically set the bar really high. As to we only take teams, or we try to take teams into the workshops which we believe that we will invest the initial 25K. So that's why we only have so many teams that we invested in.
So one of the things he's being exceptionally modest about, because we were talking about it earlier, is you have the ability to go essentially through a program which takes about a month in total, but includes 5 or 6 full-time days to actually really pull your business apart. So something which is very similar to what we do in our first month, they do part-time. And the one thing I probably push really hard is it's entirely free for the startup to participate. You don't have to give up any equity. It's a really awesome way to actually really flex your muscles in terms of the business. And I think one of the things I would be pushing people to think about when they do accelerators is think about the motivation, think about the people who are running it, think about, like, do you think they've got your corner, their back? And the sorts of people you want to think about are they're giving before they take. And that's really, really important to consider when you want to think about who you want to go to for an accelerator program.
Thanks, John, for that. I think that's really important. So we do like many things which are free, but there's only one catch. So if someone actually applies for Accelerate, they have to sign some documents that we are allowed to invest, and that's the only catch. But just to give you, just to clarify something, because I said we've invested in 6 companies, that 6 comes out of, I think it was 16 companies that went through the workshops. But in all the 10 cases that we didn't invest, all of those companies, that was a shared decision. So they also said that we are not ready to take any money from you guys because we have to still work on our business model and maybe we will come back in the future. So it's a win-win situation for anyone. So basically there are no strings attached, sort of to say you can come to the program, you can go through the workshops, you can work on your business model, and then we will see what happens.
That brings us to the question, because there's so many accelerators with so many startups. What are the accelerators, like what kind of startups should go to an accelerator? Because not all of them should actually go for a program. So what do you think a startup needs, or what kind of startups should go for the accelerators?
Yeah, basically all of the startups with that have flaws in terms of weak spots somewhere. So only the greatest ones who have a good ratio of, I don't know, technical and business know-how or founders can, obviously you need accelerators to, let's say, fine-tune your business models and fine-tune everything in terms of making your business big and great. So for the rest of them, it's basically useless.
So I strongly believe that an accelerator is what it says. It helps to accelerate pre-existing behavior. So if you're rubbish, it just makes you rubbish faster. Yeah? And actually sometimes being rubbish faster is good because it means you get rid of all of the rubbish business that you're trying to do. So in a weird way, they talk about it, but it's fast failure is good because actually getting you off bad ideas and getting into good ideas is actually a good thing. But the point, the reason why I say that is I strongly believe that accelerator programs are for doers, not talkers. Yeah? So it's all about if you're actually doing stuff right now and you want somebody to support you to be better at that, whatever that might be, this is exactly the right thing. If you're somebody who sits around in a bar and just talks, I'm talking to you guys at the back, and if you're basically a talker, you're always talking about all the great ideas that you're coming up with, including a microphone that doesn't work. This is not for you. Programs are for doers, not talkers.
So honestly, I don't think accelerator is necessarily a great choice. I mean, it's often said like go to an accelerator, and I don't think that's by definition what you guys should be doing. I think what you should look at is what are your goals, and then it also depends on where you'd like to go. If you're really serious about like going in a specific region in the US, your customers are there and you want to create something there, then apply straight away to an accelerator in that region, for instance. Or if you think you can do it without an accelerator, maybe you don't necessarily need one. I think accelerators are great hubs to connect you, to get you mentorship. I think there's also a lot of small things within accelerators that are not often talked about, but just the plain fact that you get your team together in one location, working really intensively together and having all these international teams around you offers a lot of value. And sometimes that alone, for a startup that often has different people living even across cities, offers a massive opportunity just to get together, concentrated, no distractions, work, get the support network, all the perks and mentors to make it happen. So,
well, from my perspective, there are two very typical kinds of people who apply for accelerators or any sort of support. One type, those are the people who basically want someone else to do the work for them. So basically they're a little bit lost and they're looking for the wrong kind of support. And there's the second type of people. Those are the eager, sort of like curious kids type people who know what they want. Maybe they don't have all the skills and maybe they don't have everything figured out, but they're very hardworking. They know that why they actually apply for that acceleration. So they know they can get access to mentors, they will get some cash, which will allow them to go further with their business. And I think those are the kind of people who will succeed and use the acceleration time the most. In our perspective, we are, again, very picky when it comes to picking the teams. So we only choose teams who do B2B SaaS sort of businesses. Why? This is because we think that from a country like Poland, it is the easiest sort of business model we can scale globally. And I think also the very important key to take from this is to find an accelerator which actually fits your business. There are also many different types of accelerators who offer different services, different setup. And I think the first thing you have to do is do your homework. So basically check who are the mentors, what sort of support the accelerator gives you. What should you expect after the program finishes? Because there are some accelerators which will just leave you there. It's up to you what happens next. There are some accelerators which will lead you through the, I don't know, the financing and the whole setting up of the next round. So I think the main point is to know yourself why I'm applying, what will I achieve from doing this, and what will be the next step.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the question: what is your perfect target, or who are you targeting your accelerator to? And also, what kind of a stage of the startup is really right for your accelerator or for your incubator?
I'll start because I've already started to answer this question. So basically, we're looking for B2B SaaS. The stage that you should be at is a working product, maybe a couple of customers, and that's pretty much it. Why are we raising the bar so high that you should have a product and some customers? This is very simple. It's because during our acceleration program, we are very heavily working on the validation of the business model with the product and the clients and the market. So if you don't have a working product, it could be just a very, very simple MVP, but something that you can work with. If you don't have that, then going through our workshops, talking to mentors, it doesn't really make any sense, because if you don't see it, you don't believe it. And basically that's the thing that we very strongly believe. So that's it, I think, for us.
So I think the stage in that sense is the same, because we also want startups that have like initial prototypes, some traction that we can see there's some interest. And this just makes it much easier to accelerate them. You know, whilst if they're earlier stage, you have different issues, and it's much more still about the validation. So in our case, as I said before, B2B, I think we have like three main key areas that we focus on in terms of expertise, which is cloud, payments, and security. So to give an example, security, the NATO Cyber Defense Center is based, the headquarters is based in Tallinn. So we got hooked up with a lot of people over there and security experts helping us. This is always one of the key areas in terms of trust with B2B startups. And then we have a lot of mentors in the payment space, also corporates like PayPal, etc., but also a lot of smaller startups and founders helping us. So these are the three main key areas we're interested in. And as I said, the stage is the same. And the most important thing is a great team. At the end of the day, a startup is about the people. So I think all of us, we choose the people. There needs to be click. We need to see the passion and the motivation and the right skill set.
So unlike everybody else, actually we'll take teams from essentially any sector. it's quite easy. Our selection criteria, we've got 5 key criteria, which include team, opportunity, and team. And we genuinely are looking for people who have massive levels of ambition and really want to make a really, really big impact in big markets. Because we have 12 programs and a lot of those are in the US, where historically I might have been a little bit nervous of taking really ambitious projects, because of the depth of our network, we can just take that bit more risk with people who really want to change really big problems. So to kind of give you some sense, has anybody in the room ever been a child? Okay, so one of my teams is trying to build a bank for kids. Yeah, it's kind of pretty out there in terms of how big and ambitious that might be. A, just being able to set up a bank from nothing, and B, trying to tackle a real big issue, which is creation of banks for kids and all the complications associated with it. But guess what? If it works, it will profoundly make a big, big impact and potentially make a lot of money for a few people.
So we're obviously a telecom incubator.
If you want to talk, just go out behind the doors, then we cannot hear you.
Yeah, okay, so,
back to you, Luca.
Thanks. So basically, we're a telecom accelerator, and our areas of interest are obviously telecom related. But we have 10 to 15 fields, including B2B segments, SaaS, and everything else, focused on mobile, but also on things like, I don't know, Internet of Things, security, cybersecurity, e-commerce, basically anything that can make a good synergy with a telecom. So the basic point is that we have a huge network of companies with a big, vast number of customers. So any product that can, for example, disrupt anything in our network is good. Disrupt in a good way, of course. So basically, also what we are looking is obviously, the next generation ideas. So the ideas that can change the mindset of, thinking about telecom. So things like WhatsApp, or things like Snapchat, or things like PayPal, or these are stuff that we are looking at. Of course, from our perspective, we have a huge R&D, let's say, labs in our footprint, and we know obviously possibilities and everything outside, but the thing that's the spark, the genius, the team that you see that will click, that's our, let's say, the holy grail. Yeah.
I would also like to emphasize what John said and also Luca said about the team. With us, it's also kind of strange, because one of the things that we do during Accelerate is we go to Silicon Valley for 2 weeks. And basically how it looks, we rent an Airbnb, we all sleep together, not maybe in the same bed, and even in the same room, but still in the same house. We eat together, we drive together, we go out together. It's 2 weeks, it's 14 days, and you can really get to know people if you spend 24 hours for 14 days together. And basically it's a very, very important part of the program, because you will find out stuff about people you wouldn't be able to find out in millions of years if you wouldn't spend that much time together, like constantly. And the basic takeaway from that is, after those 2 weeks, if those are the people you want to spend more time with and you want to go out for a beer after that, basically that was a good investment decision. If not, then they will probably fail. So I would also like to encourage you to, before you apply, try to maybe get to know the people behind those accelerators. There are different meetings, there are different meetups, conferences, etc. You can pretty much talk to anyone nowadays. And if you feel some kind of chemistry, I think it will be beneficial for both the investor and the startup as well.
Okay, so all of you said about the team, we have a peer test. The question is like, who should be on a team in a startup at the very beginning? And what could be a dream team for a startup? Is there anything like that?
I can start. Who knows?
So look, I mean, they say the dream team for a startup is the hustler, the hacker, and then potentially the designer. So I don't know. I think it really depends on the startup. Look, I don't like to make this like stigma of this is the perfect team. I think it depends on your business, and I think for the team, what is really important, and I think that's also something we're all looking at, is how long do the founders know each other, because this gives something about the chemistry. The likelihood of success, obviously, is the previous startup experience, previous skills. But for most startups, if you're in the tech space, you need a great IT guy. You need not only who can code, but you need a guy who can also lead and delegate. You need a hustler. You need someone to open doors. To be honest, what I found the one and most single important criteria for a successful team is the pit bull. The hustler needs to be pit bull, go for it and bite and not let go. That's what, I mean, I've seen teams in our raising money that I suspected to be the weaker teams, just because they had like one guy in the team and he just wouldn't give up, he would go for it. That is really important, I mean, skills is one thing, but the attitude and having this, hustling pit bull is very, very important as well.
So I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to ask a different question. No, it's something similar. So one of the things that I've been thinking about is thinking about the team and the people involved. And what I've come to the realization as a father of 3 is that the entrepreneurs I deal with have a mental age of 5. Let me explain that. So I spend 90 days in a program, and I spend my life trying to tell these guys what they should do. And I'll sit down and I'll rationalize it, and I'll explain exactly what they should be thinking about, where the challenges are, what they should be doing, and then they totally ignore me. And by the way, I still come back and do the same thing the day after. Because the reason why people do these programs, I can assure you there's a bit of money in it, but there are easier ways of making money than doing this stuff. The reason why most people who are doing accelerators do it is because they genuinely want to help. They actually want to make a difference, and they want to help other people who want to help themselves. And it's such a really strong emotional bond. And one of the things that we look for, you're talking about teams, you're absolutely right. I won't take a team that's less than 6 months old. I actually want the team to be really tight team. I'd actually much prefer to have a really tight team with a really bad idea. Seriously, it's absolutely true. Because if it's a really tight team, they will figure out what's wrong with the business very, very quickly. And they will move on into something much better and much more exciting. Rubbish teams with good ideas will never, ever execute on that idea itself. So it's really hard to describe. Yes, you can go through the mechanics of it should be a hipster, it should be a hustler, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is we look for the chemistry of how teams interact and how they work with each other, and whether you're finishing each other's sentences, or actually whether you're actually challenging each other. There is a risk that if you're all too the same, you won't actually see the differences or the problems. And so there's this constant need to be a tight team, but being willing to fall out with each other, or to actually point out everybody else's mistakes. But singularly, it cannot be underestimated how important the team is, whether it's in an accelerator or whether it's just as a startup in a general statement.
I agree completely with both of you guys. We have, I would just one more thing. We usually get 2 or 3 friends. We created a startup. We want to do acceleration. We want to do great things with our startup. But what usually falls apart is the friendship thing kills it all. So when thinking about it, it's best for them to be completely different personalities. And yes, at least 6 months together, but not long-time friends since I don't know, kindergarten, because that would kill the thing.
So friendship, I mean by working in a team, I don't actually mean standing at a bar talking about doing a business. I actually mean physically, side by side, actually working on a project. I mean, I actually quite distinguish between, I got some friends I enjoy going, hanging out with and having beers with, but I would fucking kill them if I had to work in a business with them. Doesn't make them any less friends, but the relationship that you have with a co-founder is a very, very different relationship than you have with a mate at a bar.
Well, for me, the one realization that we came to is that it is a people's business. So basically what we invest in is people, and that's pretty obvious. And when we look at those teams and the people that make those teams, we basically look for personalities. And just to give you an example, we've recently invested in a company which has a very technical sort of a product, so very high tech. And when the guys talk about the product, normal people don't understand what they do. But the thing is, one of the founders, he's this really crazy guy. His English is not perfect. And we've spent the last 2 weeks in San Francisco, and we went to many different meetings with these top executives at different firms. And basically this guy was acting like a, I don't know, university professor with 40 years of experience in his field. And all those people were basically acting like students listening to this guy. And he was like hypnotizing. So basically he was running the show, even though his English was very weak. But his personality actually created this atmosphere, this vibe around the product that he was able to convince anyone of anything. And I think that's a really important role. And it doesn't have to be the CEO who has that role. It can be someone else on the team, on the founding team. And I think that it is really important.
Okay, thanks for that. We all agree that the team is the thing that does the startup, and that's one of the most important things. Is there a place, or is there some kind of a thing that you do in your program to actually strengthen the team or work on the personality of the founders, or do you have a part that is dedicated to team building, team personality building, something like that?
So I think finding a co-founder is a little bit like dating. So if you go out tonight and you say, I'm going to go and find a co-founder, whoa, the chances are the one thing you aren't going to find is a co-founder. So I think the other expression I use a lot is what you have to do is put yourself in the middle of the traffic. So just make yourself open to listening and to working with other people, and actually just attending events like this. But the more you crave a co-founder, the less likely you're actually going to find one. It's kind of, you're going to turn around one day and go, actually, you're really smart and I'd like to work with you. But you have to put yourself in the position to actually potentially meet those sorts of people.
So maybe to answer your question directly, in the sense that you asked it, the answer is no. I mean, we don't specifically focus on, like personalities and look, I think that's the selection, right? And then I think the most important criteria also that has been mentioned really is coachability. They have to be coachable. There can be amazing people who've worked together for years, great skills. If they're not coachable, it's so tough to go through the program, and it's very frustrating for the mentors and for everybody involved to see, that there's clearly also no value for them. So coachability is very important, and then for the team building, I think what we focus on mostly is the team building among the team. So in our case, we have a lean startup weekend. We take all the guys together. It's like a whole weekend with trainings, and in the evenings it's drinks and saunas, for Estonia. This kind of stuff. It's just getting the guys together, getting to know each other, because founders in a program that tend to be so focused on their own stuff. You have your product and that's it. So make sure then mingle, get to know each other, and work together is extremely important. And then the rest is about coachability and getting the best out of them.
I mean, the same answer. We don't have a direct thing, but I think that, acceleration programs are actually team buildings. So what you do is basically put a couple of people who work together and put them at the same place for long hours and press them really hard to, to disassemble everything, their personalities, their products, everything they know so far, and you basically see them transforming, either falling apart or, killing each other or, making, falling in love, even more.
Well, for us, it's the stay in Silicon Valley. So basically, when you have those 14 days where we spend so much time together, we don't always talk about business. So there are other topics we talk about. And going into different areas than just their startup and their technology, it basically opens up those people and we can get to know them a little bit better. And also the teams themselves talk to each other in a different way, not in a business sense. And I think that's the best, sort of coachable approach that you can take. So get those people, get them into an Airbnb and let them stay there for 2 weeks.
Okay, switching off from the teams and everything. You have a lot of teams applying for your startup. They have great ideas and everything. But when they're applying, are you thinking of the exit strategy, or how will they actually exit the company, and how will you make money? And if yes, what are the tactics behind that?
Maybe I can start. So basically for us, the exit strategy is, integrating them into one of our telecoms for them. So for them, that means, deploying somewhere and an a huge influx of users. So for us, that's the exit point. Follow-up rounds, we have T Ventures, a VC fund of Deutsche Telekom behind them. So for us, the exit is somewhere really, really far away, So from our perspective, no. Our exit is, to plugging them into the system, making them really fast, really big, really fast.
Big markets, can we make money, and something will follow. I think if you're fixated on exit too early, you should be fixated on building an awesome business, yeah? And if you have an awesome business or an awesome product, everything else will follow from that.
I think we agree with each other too much, but I mean, it's not much I can say. Of course. I mean, we're at early stage. There's no point, like, for us to think exactly about how the exit would look like. It's about helping them to grow their business and grow them big, and then, if they're good enough, the exit will follow, and this is a longer-term play. So.
The interesting part is the really, really big businesses never exit. So, like, Facebook hasn't technically exited. I mean, it's floated. But so an exit's actually almost arguably, you're not going the whole way, you're going to get out early. And actually in a weird way, we're actually interested in is people who have the capacity to take it the whole way through.
For us, it's just basically looking at creating value. As long as the company is creating value, then we're not worried about the exit because it will come sooner or later. That's it.
Okay, so going back to your program, what is the main focus what is the main thing that you're focusing through the program? Like, what are the steps? Like, what are the startups starting with? What are they doing in the middle? And what are they exiting your program with? So, what are you focusing on during the program, main steps?
For us, it's the business model. So we want to have a very clear hypothesis of the business model, which can be validated on the market.
So I would say customer. I think a lot of accelerators talk about investments. We all talk about business models and everything else. But what we do, like week one, at the end of the first week, I ask all the teams, so how many customers have you spoken to this week? And then whatever number they say, okay, what did they say? Let's go into this. So it's really about like creating this habit of going out there all the time, also asking the right questions, talking to the customer in the right way. If you talk about still the validation part, don't ask your customer like, would you buy this product? Rather you need to probably validate how much money they've spent on this problem in the past, this kind of stuff. So be very specific, do proper validation, and then the sales part, focus on the customer. That's the most important. And then obviously, you know, later how to talk to investors and everything else. But
so startups have, the wonderful thing about a startup is that you can just about do anything. And one of the biggest challenges that all startups have is actually what they say no to, because you will be faced with a wide variety of opportunities in a wide variety of different ways. And sometimes it's not what you're saying yes to, it's actually what are you going to have to rule out? Because as a team, you have a very limited amount of time and resource. That's the only thing you have. You don't have money, so you can't hire a bunch more people. And so therefore you have a very limited number, you only have 24 hours in a day, same as you, same as me, everybody. That's the one consistency we have across the board. And with the number of team members you have, that means that you only can do a certain limited number of things at any point in time. And in an accelerator, getting the right support to figure out what you need to be concentrating on, as opposed to the things that you want to do. So it's the classic statement that always gets used. You always revert to the stuff which is easiest for you. If you're a coder and you're being told to phone make a sales call, you'll put your head down and you'll do a bit more coding before you pick up the phone. And so putting people in a really uncomfortable position in a good way and pushing them to actually do the right things as opposed to the things that are easiest for them.
I will again agree with Mike. We need to disagree at least once. So from our perspective is also customer. Customers are our end goal. We have a lot of customers that have a lot of needs and we need filling. So from our perspective is we have the access to them, but we need you to create the golden product that makes customers happy. From one standpoint, but from the other point, also what we found out that not a lot of startups that come to us know what is out there. So the technologies, the concepts, everything else that is out there in the world, they just keep one small part of it. So we like to open their eyes, expose them to a lot of new cutting edge tech, with the guys from our T-Labs and bring them into speed with, I don't know, either technologies or concepts like connected. So, yeah.
actually, small side comment to John's note, we actually had developers asking us whether we can outsource the customer interviews. Not a good idea, but.
Okay, thank you. With the last question, startups usually don't die because of lack of the product, but they do die because of the lack of the customers. So in your program, do you have any part dedicated to user acquisition, or how are you helping your startups to actually gain some users to use their product?
It's a really hard question. No one wants to answer it. Well, basically what we do is we focus on sort of testing what are the different channels you can acquire users, but we're not doing that in a very thorough way. So basically it's something at a later stage. We focus on more of the product itself and maybe just talking to some customers to get a feeling of the market, not really going after user acquisition.
So I think really, again, heavily depends on the customer, but I think really make things very easy. I think what I see a lot of times is startups can make things very complicated. So just to talk about marketing, we had one case where a startup was talking about their marketing plan and user acquisition strategy, and they were talking social media and all the buzzwords. And then it just popped out that they had a database of 20,000 developers, which was, by the way, the customer group. They just had the email list of 20,000 of developers. So I was looking at them and say, what are you talking about, right? You have this list right there. You have 20,000 email addresses. That's what you go after. That's what you go for. So make things simple. So we might like some growth hackers to look into simple ways of like improving first growth. If it's B2B, often you're talking about direct sales. So getting good sales guys to just help you with handy tricks simple things, and just ask in our network who's willing to do pilots. So very kind of hands-on, simple things, get initial traction up, get pilots, get customers, and then grow from there.
It's on. The reason everybody pulled a funny face was for every single business, there's a different way of doing it. But to come back to Mike's point, sometimes the biggest problem that most people have is they create hugely complex business models. And if anybody in the room is doing a B to B to C, stop, please. And I have these, the other one that I always talk about, and I'll give you a really good example of how you can go through this process of simplifying. So I had a team that came to me that wanted to do a marketplace. Anybody doing a marketplace in the room? No? Thank God for that. They don't work. Or it's actually, no, in fairness, they do, but they are exceptionally hard to do. So I had a team who wanted to do, and this is the way they described it, we want to do local services for local people. So if you're at home, you can get somebody to come and fix a pipe, you can get a gardener, you could get a cleaner, you could get a piano tuner. We always say piano tuner. I don't know anybody, apart there's a piano behind you, but there's always piano tuner on the list. And Alex, who was running the business, we went through the whole program and said, marketplaces are really hard because you've got to see both sides of the system. And actually, it's really hard to try and get both of them going at the same time. And she finished the program, and 6 months later, she was really struggling to raise some money. And she woke up one morning and went, you know what? Marketplaces are really hard. So what she did was she completely simplified her product. And all she did was turn the business into a cleaning business. So all she did, it wasn't even a marketplace for cleaners. She found the cleaners, and people came to her and said, I need a cleaner. She charged a fixed price and had a bunch of service level of agreements and said, we will give you these people. And 18 months later, she has a cash flow break-even business. And she has no problem raising money at all. But in that process, she had something which was relatively complicated, and there were lots of different things that had to line up and happen at the same time. And in the process of just really stripping back, what is your business? Because until you can figure out what is the singular thing that's most important in your business, if that bit doesn't work, actually none of the rest is going to work. And so you really have to really strip it back and be really aggressive and try to figure out what is the value in the business that you're trying to create.
As I mentioned, our program is 8 days. It's not 3 weeks, 3 months. It's 8 days, so it's super, intense. But for telecom, acquiring customers, it's natural. So we are, developed in the last 50 years, a lot of techniques, models, and etc. So from that standpoint, we know how to do that, and we can teach them, try to teach them in several ways. One of the ways Mike mentioned is piloting. That comes after it, because after that 8 days, you are part of our, let's say, alumni, and it's not done for you. You may not get follow-up investment from us, but we will find you a suitable market to launch if you want to validate your hypothesis or the product. So piloting is just going out there and seeing, okay, this really works or this doesn't work.
Okay, thank you. And the very, very last question, like if you have one message to the people in the room about your accelerator, what would that be? One sentence.
Learn how to use a microphone. Do more faster.
I don't know, apply.
One thing. About accelerator?
Estonian women are hot.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
And the men aren't too bad either.
mean, like, what is? I can't argue with this. True point. And you know, B2B, come here.
Just to finish up, I think just dare to dream really big. That's why we're here, and that's why we want to help you with big ideas.
Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you for answering all of the questions.